Alright, let's get some more big boy lockers, shall we? Looks like they need a bit of a space in between them. Or maybe not? Oh, like right here. There we go. There's 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Alright, so. Let's take all this. We'll put them in here. Let's take all this. Let's put it in here. Awesome. Now we have a lot more storage. So let's, before we head out, let's read the rest of these thingamabobbers. Oh, first, Transgov Profile, Altera Corp. One of the largest suppliers of spacefaring technologies and consumer electronics in the Federation. The official supplier of the TSF. Consistently ranked amongst the galaxy's best employers, began life as a defense manufacturer in the mid-22nd century. National motto, get what you deserve. Although most Transgovs can trace their roots back to Earth, Altera, literally meaning by Earth, is the only one brazen enough to take its name. During the expansion, Altera supplied arms to all sides, acquiring and housing a vast colonist workforce, and making the transition from manufacturer to corporate state. Altera's threat to cease trade was one of the turning points in the conflict, bringing about the end of hostilities and the signing of the Charter. Free enterprise within Altera space is encouraged, but competition is tight, and all goods exported off-world must be Altera branded. Profitable businesses are bought out by the state, and owners ascending to the board of directors. Well-known Altera technologies like the Cyclops submersible originated with such private enterprises. Despite superficial similarities to national governments, the corporation's lawyers have always maintained that it has no legal obligation to its employees, but voluntarily elects to take on the roles usually served by a democratically elected government. This claim has not yet been tested in Federation courts. Oh boy. So it's basically a corporate dictatorship. Great. Advanced theories, specimen with symptoms of infection. This organism is displaying signs of bacterial infection. Bright green blisters are forming networks around the infection sites. Pathology suggests a waterborne bacterium capable of penetrating the body through the skin and respiratory system. Underlying indications of genetic mutation and aggressive behavior. The bacterium itself is unlike any so far recorded in human exploration. Warning, may be contagious. Avoid. Do not under any circumstances consume the flesh. Consume the flesh. Well, I seem to be sick anyway. Equipment. Air pumps. Air pumps can be used to pipe breathable air to... Okay, yeah, these are not helpful. Habitat installations. Here we go. Life pod for crew log. Play it.
To any Altera crew. Landed in area of significant alien activity. Encountered predators in the Leviathan class, highly aggressive. Spectroscope scanner assigned species designator Reaper. One specimen attempted to swallow the life pod, doing extensive damage in the process. Only viable option is to make for the safety of the Aurora crash site. I have retrieved a data box with the creature decoy and enough resources to fabricate a couple of them. The swim's longer than the decoy lifetime, but it should just be enough to keep them busy. If you don't find me on board the ship, presume I miscalculated.
Well, you did. LifePod 6 transmission origin. Distress signal has been received from LifePod 6, but the attached coordinates were corrupted. Last available photographic data has been downloaded and analyzed. Crew requested assistance navigating radiation sunk to approximately 100 meters. Located in an area with dense with red grass near a number of natural arches and rock stacks. Transmission origin approximately 400 meters west-northwest of LifePod 4's last known location. You'll probably find that pretty easily. Operations logs. Drive core shielding breach. The Aurora's drive core is shielded by a thick metal shell which breached in multiple locations shortly after the crash. Once breached, it will continue to leak radiation into the surrounding environment until the breaches are sealed. After that point, the radiation in the environment will dissipate over time. This procedure should only be attempted with appropriate radiation protection and a fully charged repair tool. Did it! VR Suite log. Loading program Desert Island Drama.vrat. Size 3 players. Resources normal. Spawning players on the beach. Player 1 has been washed away by an unusually high tide. Player 2 has traded a coconut with Player 3 for 10 credits. Player 3 has planted a coconut. Players are getting hungry. Player 3 has grown a coconut tree. Player 3 has eaten a coconut. Player 3 is no longer hungry. Player 3 has traded a coconut with Player 2 for 30 credits. Player 2 has eaten a coconut but is still hungry. Player 3 has traded a coconut with Player 2 in exchange for building a tent. Player 3 is sleeping inside their tent. Player 2 is cold. Night falls. Passing ship is offering trading. Player 2 has traded 30 credits for a musket. Player 3 has been shot twice in the head while sleeping. Player 2 wins. Player 2 has died from cold and starvation. Oh, that's about how it goes, ain't it? Geological data. 4546B environment scan. Category 3 ocean planet. Oxygen, nitrogen, atmosphere, extensive biodiversity. Very nice. Safety warnings. May support Leviathan-class predators. Water contaminated with high levels of foreign bacteria. Planet is beyond Federation space. Rescue unlikely. It is not recommended to explore this environment without hazardous material suits and extensive support apparatus. Welp, we're doing it anyway. Indigenous life forms coral. Brain coral. Permanent growing colony of microscopic organisms. This coral species has adapted to filter carbon dioxide from the environment, using the carbon to build the colony and expelling the oxygen from specialized exhaust funnels. It's quite hardy, suggesting samples from a mature specimen could be grown artificially. Assessment: air tanks are equipped to siphon oxygen from the water where possible. Nice. Oxygen shell plate. This variant of corals adapted to survive in close proximity to other corals, filtering nutrients from the water and sharing them via a spore-like substance which grows around the base. Assessment: no practical applications discovered, but they do look cool. Giant coral tubes. A variety of coral formations on 4546B appear to be different solutions to the same problem of maximizing water and nutrient flow throughout the colony. These particular variants funnel water down a tube, filtering nutrients as they pass. Their size suggests that they have been highly successful. Assessment: coral tube samples are rich in calcium, exploitable in bleach fabrication. Nice. Table coral. Each disc is an individual colony of microorganisms filtering nutrients from the water. Growth patterns indicate the colonies are in direct competition for positions with superior current or light. Unlike other coral species, its structure is malleable, softly pulsating as it pumps nutrients to its extremities, and only turning rigid when it senses physical assault. The jewel-like nodes on the surface are concentrated buildups of rare minerals the coral is unable to possess. Assessment: exploitable in computer chip fabrication. Because of all that shit. Yeah, shut up. Carnivores. Biter. Vicious pack-hunting predator, 94% muscle, 4% connective tissue, 2% brain, indiscriminate when hungry, almost always hungry. 1. Specialized olfactory antenna, employed in detection of bodily fluids in the water at impressive range. 2. Secondary pair of eyes, likely dedicated to detecting peripheral movement of larger predators, and hungry members of its own species. 3. Overdeveloped tail fin, favors outpacing and outnumbering their prey over individual maneuverability. Calculation suggests creatures up to 100 times the biter's body weight could succumb to a focused assault by a pack of 10. Assessment: avoid packs, try not to bleed. Yeah, you know, good advice always. Crashfish. This highly unusual species has developed an emergency defense mechanism based on mutually assured destruction. 1. Forward-mounted eyes enables the creature to identify and track potential predators. 2. Sulfur plant. The sulfur plant has evolved to feed on sulfuric compounds secreted by the crashfish, which makes its nest within its leaves. Stronger, more protective plants provide superior nesting grounds, which in turn provide the plant with more nutrients from larger crashfish. 3. Defense mechanism. Concentrations of sulfur build up in the organism over time. If the crashfish collides with something at sufficient speed, the spikes on its torso are impacted, triggering an explosive chemical reaction. Assessment: equipped stasis rifle, repulsion cannon are similar before approaching the shallow caves. Or just don't die. Sand shark, powerful medium-sized predator that burrows into sand and ambushes prey from below. As with many predators, it may be possible to temporarily distract sand sharks by feeding any hungry specimens that draw close. 1. Forward dorsal fin. The unusual location of this fin suggests a purpose unrelated to movement through the water. It may be employed in shifting sand beneath the surface or in mating rituals, or may simply be an evolutionary dead end. 2. Segmented exoskeleton. Thick armor plating renders the sand shark almost immune to attack from above. While it is capable of impressive acceleration, its exoskeleton prevents it from changing direction quickly. Sand shark is thus a perfectly designed ambush hunter, but ill-suited to sustained pursuits. It misses and just kind of flies through the water. It's hilarious. 3 feet, ill-designed for ambulation, likely used to disturb the surface of the sand so the life form can burrow into the ground. Assessment: avoid, be vigilant for ambush in sandy biomes. They live right outside. Stalker. A streamlined predator encountered in the kelp forests in weight of prey, leaving the safety of the shallows to feed. The stalker likely carved out its evolutionary niche at the sweet spot between speed and size millions of years ago, and may be one of the oldest species on the planet. The stalker appears to be attracted to titanium deposits, which tends to sharpen and put stress on its teeth. As with many predators, it may be possible to temporarily distract hungry stalkers by feeding them. 1. Teeth. The stalker's teeth are unusually hard and fast-growing. Its elongated snout can deliver huge biting pressure to larger attackers, while also being used to reach small herbivores seeking refuge amongst the rocks. 2. Night vision. Retinal layering on the eyeball suggests adaptation for nighttime hunting. 3. Dorsal ridges. These ridges can be moved independently to deliver superior maneuverability. 4. Pelvic fins. Long and powerful, the stalker has evolved to hunt the fastest of prey. Assessment. Stalker teeth may have application in enameled glass fabrication. But we'll use that at some point. Herbivores large. Gasopod. A slow-moving life form and one of the larger herbivores on the planet, providing a substantial meal to would-be predators. The gasopod protects its domain by filling the surrounding water with poisonous and corrosive pods whose contents dissolve even synthetic fibers. 1. Filtration system. Thick, non-reactive skin and multiple gill layers render this creature impervious to the noxious acid cloud it produces. 2. Algae gland. A bulbous sac-like appendage on the rear end. A luminescent yellow algae grows inside the sac and produces the poisonous compound. Abdominal muscles can contract, causing the algae gland to emit the noxious compound in the surrounding water. 3. Large pelvic fins, capable of powerful movement through the water when moving in small herds. 4. Behavior. Gasopods appear to be social in nature, and may even use their emissions in their relationship rituals. Their audible calls are likely signifiers of nearby threats or food sources. Assessment. Approach with caution. Acidic pods may be retrieved and repurposed. Don't know what I'd use them for. Rabbit ray. A herbivorous aquatic life form, rabbit rays appear to live serene and solitary lives with few predators, a natural sense of curiosity, and awesomely poisonous flesh. 1. Ears. Twin orange appendages mounted on the head, sense vibration in the water. 2. Undulating wings. Markedly similar method of transportation to that of Earth rays. Zero genetic resemblance detected, suggesting these two species independently developed similar solutions to their environmental circumstances. Evidence indicates its large side-facing eyes are relatively recent adaptations. It is likely there are related ray species in other environmental biomes on the planet. Assessment: inedible but harmless, and also adorable. Small herbivores. Bladderfish. This unusual herbivore appears to be mostly defenseless and bears little resemblance to the other life forms around it. 1. Semi-permeable bladder. The bladderfish is able to filter air and seawater into its body cavity and through a unique membrane which surrounds its spine like a bladder. This allows it to remove and consume organic particulate caught on the way and adjust its buoyancy. 2. Open-ended vascular tubing. Can be angled and contracted to pump out water and achieve low-velocity guided propulsion. Largely oblivious to threats and practically immobile at night, its only identified defense mechanism is that it's composed almost entirely of water, air, and cartilage. Assessment: edible. Oxygen may be retrieved from the bladder and added to tanks on consumption. Membrane has applications as a natural water filter, which we use. Boomerang. A herbivore encountered in large numbers, found to freak in shallow waters and move in schools. 1. Serrated teeth. Suggests adaptation for grinding corals other herbivores are unable to digest. I don't know if you eat coral, I don't think that counts as a herbivore. 2. Twin fins. Unusually, this species' two fins are a cartilaginous extension of its skeleton. They are less prone to damage and provide superior propulsion, but are also harder to grow back. The bright blue tips are in fact the ends of its digestive tract, where the luminescence of the corals it consumes is most focused. Most active during daylight hours and prone to flee on approaching, the boomerang can more easily be observed at night when its luminescence gives it away and it seeks the shelter of the seabed. Assessment: edible. Garyfish. Slow-moving and curious herbivore. Camouflage indicates adaptation for evasive behavior on the ocean floor. 1. Eye stalks may be beneficial when watching for predators from hiding places amongst the coral. Boy. 2. Behavior. More active during daylight hours, but slow and docile at all times. The garyfish's survival depends on a combination of camouflage and predators who can get a more filling meal elsewhere. Assessment: edible. Bullfish. A very small herbivore found in low numbers, often around cave system entrances where the skin coloration blends into the background. 1. Bored-out tail fin. By manipulating the size and shape of the hole in its tail, it can perform unpredictable maneuvers. 2. Size. Smaller than most other herbivores, presumably due to a lack of vegetation in low-light environments. Assessment: edible. Hoopfish. Small school mentality prey fish with a unique method of propulsion and a distant relative of the bladderfish. 1. Antennae. Rather than swimming, this life form uses the fine green antennae which encircle its body to alter the composition of the water in front of it, allowing it to sail into the low-density space created. 2. Purple-green coloration may be a camouflage adaptation for mid-range light wavelengths, possibly indicating the hoopfish is more active at dawn and dusk. 3. Behavior. While schools of hoopfish will form periodically and invade predators en masse, this behavior is more social than it is defensive, and lone hoopfish are often found hunting for food and displaying generally curious behavior. Assessment: edible. Hoverfish. Small, cautious herbivore commonly found in kelp-rich environments. 1. Charged foot pads. 6 unique limb appendages feature charged pads capable of ionizing the surrounding water. The hoverfish uses its ability to maintain its position against the current as it feeds from kelp and lichen. That's actually pretty interesting. Beeper. Fast prey fish encountered in shallow waters and rich in protein. 1. Developed side-facing eyes capable of discerning colors not just in shallow waters but in a variety of lighting conditions. It is also able to close its eyelids, thus preventing light from reflecting off the lenses and rendering the peeper almost invisible to nighttime predators. 2. Powerful fins. The species has evolved powerful fins which enable rapid acceleration in still water and the ability to leap meters into the air to avoid pursuers. 3. Beak. Likely used to break down corals and tough vegetation. An unusually large nasal cavity serves no obvious purpose. It appears to be specially evolved to detect a single specific enzyme. Nothing encountered on the planet so far produces a matching odor. 4. Expulsion tubes. The tubes attached to the beeper's torso are connected directly to its stomach and gills and appear to be designed to expel its contents on demand. Purpose unclear. While the peeper is well adapted to survive in shallow waters, a number of its features serve no discernible purpose. It would appear to be just as well suited to survive in deeper waters and is somewhat more intelligent than the usual small herbivore. Assessment: edible, high calorie count, further research required, so they're like the best thing to get. Reginald. A small herbivore and a distant relative of the common peeper, sharing that species' well-developed side-facing eyes, approximate size, and body profile. 1. Coloration. Dull green coloration for deep water camouflage, luminescent tail coloration, likely part of mating behavior. 2. Diet. Filters algae and other plant material from the water via 4 gill-like forward-facing orifices. Assessment: edible, high calorie count. Also good. Spadefish is a medium-sized herbivore found in deeper waters. 1. Single eye, observed swimming near the seabed from where it can keep its one eye on predators in the water above it. 2. Mottled green coloration, commonly encountered in plant-rich environments. The spadefish is well adapted to hide amongst the vegetation. 3. Behavior. Spadefish tend to move in loose shoals and despite their low speed will take necessary measures to avoid confirmed predators. Assessment: edible. Delicious. Leviathans. Reefback leviathan. This last life form is in excess of 30 meters long and has been designated Leviathan class. Fortunately, it feeds exclusively on plankton-like life forms in the water. 1. Chitinous shell. Most of the life form's topside and some of its underside is protected by a thick layered exoskeleton. This suggests an evolutionary path quite different from other organisms on 4546b, most of which are vertebrate in nature. The reefback species has likely been able to grow far larger than other herbivores because anything large enough to break through its shell has long since gone extinct. 2. Enzyme pods. Similar in appearance to the algae glands of the gasopod, these organs on the reefback's underside serve some unknown purpose in its digestive system and are capable of expelling small quantities of stomach enzymes into the surrounding waters. 3. Local microcosm. An array of different barnacle and plant species grow on the reefback's shell, thrusting their roots into ancient scars on the chitin and taking advantage of their mobility to avoid predation. Nonetheless, reefbacks will often be pursued by the faster, hungrier herbivores, and thus this leviathan species is a mobile microcosm worthy of years of study in itself. It's actually pretty cool. 4. Life cycle. Reefbacks' lifespans likely extend through many centuries should they survive their initial growth cycle. For the first few decades, their smaller size would make them vulnerable to carnivorous leviathans. Sociable, seen traveling in small pods and communicating by an echoing call, behavior is consistent with low-level sentience. Assessment: harbors plants, small fish, and metal-rich barnacles. Alright, get back to reading in just a second. I need to go get some food. Ooh, coffee vending machine. That's neat. Bleeder, a simple parasitic organism, a little more complex than the common space stick, but just as dirty. 1. Ductile sac used for collection and digestion of blood drawn from host creatures. 2. Jaw. Rows of teeth and mandibles used to attach to the skin of its victims. 3. Behavior. The bleeder's low speed and poor defense suggests they have evolved primarily as carrion feeders, but they are also prone to target larger living creatures which are less likely to notice and take action against this parasite. Assessment: inconvenient and unhygienic, avoid or incapacitate. Murdered their entire species. Cave crawler. Agile territorial carrion feeder, well adapted to both land and sea. 1. Gas exchange membrane, absorbs essential gases from the air or water for basic bodily regulation. 2. Mandibles, the species seeks out corpses in packs before defending its claim while the corpse is devoured. Assessment: necessary waste recycler, avoid or incapacitate. They're little shits. Floater. 2 species living in symbiosis which attach to and attempt to feed on any object they come into contact with. 1. Dominant life form, the pink main body and inner suction jaws, the dominant creature. Once attached to an organism or other stable surface, it will attempt to leach nutrients in order to grow. 2. Microorganism membrane. This outer gel-like substance is a mesh of microorganisms capable of forming a sealed vacuum around the creature's jaws. 3. Helium buffer. A thin layer of helium stored within the outer membrane, providing buoyancy to the floater and anything it is attached to. Assessment: may aid in flotation of sunken objects. Shuttlebug. Common scavenger at the base of the food chain. 1. Mouthparts. Small enough to be of little threat to most organisms, this creature is clearly adapted to feed on the waste products of the ecosystem around it. 2. 3 mandibles. Used to orient themselves when shifting and to filter through detritus on cave floors. Three legs. High-strength muscles can perform the life form great distances through the water, as well as ambulating them across the sea floor. Assessment necessary waste recycler presence may indicate nearby cave systems. It's where they live. Lots of them. Alright, flora. Exploitable. Acid mushroom. A common spore-bearing fungi species, the flesh contains a highly acidic compound which leaches into the water if the outer skin is penetrated. It is not clear which predator species necessitated such extreme countermeasures, but the acid mushroom's numbers suggest it has successfully deterred most of them. Assessment inedible. Application as acid has applications in battery fabrication. It does, and they're great. Creepvine. Creepvine, a kelp species concentrated in large forests and shallow sandy waters. Loose roots anchor the plant to the sea floor, from where it grows steadily toward the surface in pursuit of sunlight. The stem is fibrous and rich in iron, making it both a viable base material for fabrication of textiles as well as a basic foodstuff. Assessment, vital alien resource, edible, construction applications. Creepvine seeds. Mature creepvine plants that have survived the predation of small herbivores produce these bioluminescent seed clusters, which may be knocked loose by currents or consumed and later deposited by predators. The embryo is surrounded by a thick oil and silicone layer, which would dispense into the ground as its outer skin is deteriorated. This may provide the seedling with the nutrients it needs to survive the low-light conditions on the seabed. Assessment, vital alien resource, construction applications. Sulfur plant. These plants appear to serve as nests for the explosive organisms which guard them. The outer petals are undamaged by the presence of the inhabiting creature, suggesting a complex co-development. The plant has evolved to feed on nutrients and minerals deposited within it by the fish. Sulfuric deposits on the inner leaves provide an insight into the mechanism by which the creatures explode. Assessment, sulfur has applications in construction of the repair tool. C. Blue palm. The blue palm is a common aquatic plant which thrives in shallower waters with a high exposure to sunlight. Long fronds intercept light before it can reach a smaller flora on the seabed. Drooping stinger. 1. Zero photosynthetic cells detected, implies carnivorous adaptation to low-light environments. 2 follicles along the tentacles are capable of detecting contact with foreign bodies, triggering an electromagnetic charge in the 600-watt range. Prey is likely paralyzed and consumed over many weeks. Prey small fish. Assessment, avoid. On it, boss. Redwort, common plant adaptable to many environments. The redwort is a staple part of the diet of many smaller herbivores. Rouge cradle, a complex cave-dwelling flora specimen. The bright yellow core of this plant is protected by a rigid cage, presumably to ward off medium-sized herbivores, but I found it on the back of a reef back, not a cave, whatever. Target plant. This plant is adapted since fluctuations in the water at up to 15 meters and is capable of both prehensile movement of its tubes as well as the propelling of thorns at speeds of up to 10 meters per second. Although capable of incapacitating small herbivores, this plant lacks carnivorous digestive organs. Would-be predators caught in its defensive perimeter serve as a warning to other herbivores not to approach, and then as they decompose, they serve as fertilizer for the tiger plant. Assessment, avoid or incapacitate. I've met one and it was not really nice to me. Veined nettle, a common shallow water plant which frequently shows signs of predation around the edges of the leaves. Thick violet veins carry nutrients to the extremities of the fan, and brightly colored seeds grow around the base and stem. Violet bow, a common luminescent plant which grows in patches on the seabed. Writhing weed, well adapted to both shallow waters and cave systems, this plant lives in symbiosis with a coral species which forms around the base of the stems. Well, that was fun. Alright, let's listen to what this message has to say.
This is Sunbeam. You know Aurora. We're from a little transgov on the far side of Andromeda, and we have a saying there. There's no bad without the good, no good without the bad. Sounds like you tasted a bunch of the former, but that only means you're overdue a whole lot of the latter. Might just be we're in. We're scanning for somewhere to park. We'll be in touch when we find it. Sunbeam out.
Ah, cool, don't die. Alright, so I think next is to go find all these life pods around here. That'll be neat. Go do that in a little bit.